the School of Culture, History and Language. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'll be saying a few words in a moment, but first I'd like to introduce Cheyne Halloran, who's a Ngunnawal man, and we're really privileged to have Cheyne here today to deliver the welcome to country. Thank you, Cheyne.
With permission from my elders, I say, Yuma, Yumulundi, Yangu Galanyin, Ngarawiri, Ngunnawal Dara. Hello and welcome. Today we're all here in Ngunnawal country. I can't stress how pressure it feels to speak a language that we're just learning again for a long time in front of a room full of linguists. Firstly, I acknowledge my ancestors and my elders, the Ngunnawal people, who are the traditional custodians of the region encompassing Canberra, the ACT and surrounds. The Ngunnawal people pay our respects to our traditional neighbours, the Gurungara people to the northeast, the Waggaloo to the south, the Wiradjuri to the west, the Yuin to the east, and the Ngarigo to the southeast. We know that a welcome to country is an ancient Aboriginal protocol that ensures that once welcomed, your body and spirit are protected whilst on another's land. The Ngunnawal people welcome you and call on our ancestors to provide you a safe journey during your time in country. Yinjumara Daura, Yinjumara Ngunnawal Gudas. We ask that you respect the land and the people and traditions here in Ngunnawal country. I'd like to speak about two Ngunnawal words of the Ngunnawal people. The first word being Yinjumara. It's a word commonly translated from Ngunnawal to English to mean respect. But it's more accurately defined as a lifestyle philosophy of respect and harmony, traditionally with the land, with the environment, and with the people around you. The second word is Galambuni, which indicates the inclusive nature of my Ngunnawal ancestors and translates to you, me, and us together. In that spirit, our ancestors invited and welcomed our tribal neighbours to the region to trade and participate in ceremonies, forums, and sustaining the practice of law. It also became a safe place or a platform to share knowledge and culture and to discuss any significant issues that may arise. The time together was used to identify the evolving change and resilience needed to not only care for country and environment, but to move forward together to suit the needs of the tribes, the clans, and of course the individual. Our ancestors and elders have taught us that to move forward addressing every issue that arises is imperative, and that it's our duty and obligation to learn and create the proper tools required to deal with any of those issues. I'd like to acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to all elders, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous. Your knowledge and experience is valuable in helping guide our modern society to shape an inclusive future for all who live in this country. Our elders teach us to learn and move forward together. We have to ask questions and seek advice from those whose footprints we're walking. And we must never forget the past that shaped us to where we are today. We're taught that empowerment through education allows us to identify the future leaders that we elect to speak for us, so that we can build capacity, promote sustainability, positive change and self-determination in our communities. This is important to ensure we one day reach a place of harmony and of equity, where we can play our part in modern community whilst maintaining our traditional values and practices. Yumulundi, Galambani, Gajale, Yinjimara, Winangai. Welcome, may we all find peace and respect as we look, listen and learn together. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Cheyne. That was wonderful, and I think a great start to the day today. And I'd just like to also welcome everybody and thank you for coming here. I know some have travelled a long way from here. I think Tony and Woodbury, I haven't met yet, but I know he's in the audience there. Wonderful to have you attend, and I think it's, looking at the faces in the audience from across many years of research here at ANU. I think it's a wonderful accolade to Alan and what Alan has contributed to the university. And today we're going to hear a lot about that, I'm sure, particularly the intellectual contribution, but as director of a school, I guess my take on it is really about, I'd like to just really thank and acknowledge Alan's contribution to particularly the sort of education and service within our school. It's just quite remarkable, and in terms of his sort of selfless and very hard-working and contribution everybody is very aware of, but I think deserves acknowledgement here as well. So I'd just like to thank Alan for that. There's many sticky situations, and Alan has been able to jump in and take over and help out. So that's a real role model, I think, for academics in today's university. So thanks, Alan, for that. And the other very nice thing I've got to do is, I think I'm allowed to do this, announce that Alan officially will be Emeritus Professor in our school at ANU as of tomorrow, I think. The official point is, but so maybe you've got one day free, I'm not sure. But yeah, so it's a really, wonderful, again, I think, deserved accolade. I'm sure we'll see Alan around, of course, as we move forward, and I look forward to continued on our contributions and discussions that Alan will bring. Really, the only other thing I've got to say is, again, welcome to this symposium. I'm really looking forward to it. Some wonderful talks I've got coming up, and I just want to hand over to Nick, really, to set the scene for the day. Thanks.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to this day of tribute and celebration to our dear colleague Alan Rumsey, who's also a very dear friend and has been for a long time to me. When we knew that Alan was going to, Alan's written about quoted speech a lot, so let's put quotes around the word retire here. Once we knew that, we thought it would be good to have some formal moment at which we mark some tribute to all he's done, all the people he's touched, all the fields he's transformed, all the friendships he's extended, both here and to places where he's worked in the field. So we set aside this day to do it. And the way we put together the program was we decided we could invite someone from afar, and I asked Alan who he would like that to be, and he chose Tony Woodbury, who will hear first. So Tony very kindly agreed to come all the way from Austin, Texas for a few days focused on this event. So I'd like to thank you to Tony for making this journey. And then we put together a program, really that was very hard because dozens and dozens of people were sort of lining up to talk, and I have to apologise for all those who weren't able to be included. And I know you would have loved to, and we would have loved to hear you, but there's only so much time in the day, and we wanted the day to reflect both different places Alan has worked, different fields of interest that he's touched upon, and perhaps most importantly of all, different age groups, from senior scholars down to people still doing their postgraduate studies. So as you will see, the field of people who are talking reflects that range. I've got just two housekeeping matters that I'll just insert here into the middle. So the first is there's going to be a dinner tonight at Copper Chimney Indian Restaurant, and I just gave them an estimate, but I'd like to, at lunchtime, tell them a little bit more about how many people to cook for. So it'll be a banquet $40. There can be vegetarian and non-vegetarian options that we can easily deal with later. But I would like to tell them a rough number of how many people will come. So can you please just put your hand up, 2 hands if you're bringing someone, and then I can let them. Sorry, that will be at 7 tonight. Yeah. So put your hand up nice and high so I can see it. 2 fingers is a little confusing for me. This, like, Dara, you've got 2 fingers. That's just 1 hand, is it? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's good. Thanks. All right. And the second housekeeping matter is we'd like to have a group photo that Martin Blaschik down the back will take, and we will do that 5 minutes before the program resumes after the lunch break, so at 1:45. So please just be here. We'll take it here where Martin says the light is perfect for what we want to do. So speaking of light, I put this image up to begin the talk, and it's one that Alan brought to my attention when we were both working on a project on social cognition across languages and cultures. And a key element of social cognition is shared attention. And it's very typical of Alan in his erudition that he should have found this lovely image from 1345 BC of Akhenaten and Nefertiti and their little baby being dandled on Nefertiti's lap, which of course relates to one of Alan's interests, especially more recently, on child language socialization. This is one of the earliest depictions of that. But it also shows joint attention. So that both the parents and the little baby are directing their attention to the sun. And it seemed like an apt metaphor for today, because Alan spent a lot of time looking at how people direct their attention to various things in the world, including anthropology of religion, of course, and looking at how different cultures and different people do it. But I think it's his turn to be the sun today, and we will direct our attention to that. For those who haven't known Alan for so long, I'm not going to go back to baby photos, but this is sort of Butch Cassidy photo of Alan in Catherine Land Claim, 1983. There he is as a handsome young guy. I remember my cousin who studied briefly with him at the University of Sydney told me she had a really heavy crush on him for obvious reasons. Yeah. And then later on working in Kimberley with 2 Wairora women, Janet Wilma, and also his other really long-term field site, as well as the Kimberley, is in Papua New Guinea, in Kuwaru speaking areas. And here he is with some neighbours and friends in the village. You may note him at left. Francesco, I take it you took that photo, is that right? Yeah. So Francesco took the photo, and the woman next door, Tom, was a good neighbour. They were about to go and visit her and her family. So that just gives you a little idea of sort of Alan in the wild. I'd now like to just sort of put up some images of publications. Some of the best ones have the crappiest covers. The 2 ones that are the white ones from the olden days when Pacific linguistics used to turn out these very dusty looking volumes. So the 3rd on the top with the glamorous title of an intra-sentence grammar of Narinyun, northwestern Australia. Okay, it's not the world's sexiest title compared to Alan's CoEDL colleague Kim Sterling, who puts out books like Sex and Death and so on. But it's a gem. You go in there and it's one of the beautiful grammars of Australian languages. And then this one down the bottom, which is I think the first publication by Alan that's seriously influenced by me, also with Francesca and Jeff Heath as co-editors, and it's a treasure trove, Language of Kinship in Aboriginal Australia. Again, a rather dusty-looking publication, but full of beautiful material. And then these other ones here you can see ranging from his really epochal book with Francesca on Kuwaru, which is really about the language of oratory and dispute resolution. So a lot of linguists aspire to study languages, and then we get to a certain point where we can say, the man saw the two kangaroos who were drinking in this river or something, and we sort of limp that out. But actually getting to the point where you can follow heated disputes among participants in territorial claims and other things, and compensation claims, that's just a total another level. And Alan, as a linguistic anthropologist, has always been a model as someone who goes there and gets very, very deep into a language to look at all that can be used to accomplish inside a culture. And then this book on myth in Papua New Guinea and Australia, another interest in basically comparisons, anthropological, linguistic, cultural comparisons between the areas of his two field sites, a historical book on Warora and Bill McGregor, this book on this special edition of Anthropological Quarterly on opacity of mind. That is it the case that in Melanesian cultures in particular, people have this deep epistemological skepticism about how far you can know what other people are thinking and wanting. So some really fine papers in there. And then one of the links to Tony's presence, a shared love of verbal art, including Chanted Tales, this magnificent project. This is an ANU press publication. I recommend to all, if there's anyone here who hasn't already seen it. It's like going back to the Mediterranean of Homer, but in the Papua New Guinean highlands, and seeing this incredible tradition of Chanted Tales, working with the practitioners, doing very fine metrical analyses and so on. It's just a tour de force. And I should point out that one of the things that Alan started off studying was classical Greek, so he wasn't just coming from a background of naivety about that. And then on the bottom right, showing that among all of the very deep linguistic and anthropological interests he has, there's also many applied elements. You saw the Butch Cassidy photo in connection with land claims, but also the impact of mining and issues like this, which occupy development, anthropology of development, have also fallen in Alan's field of interests. I'd also like to say something about the very special place that Alan and Francesca hold in Australian linguistics. So pardon me talking from a linguistic side for a moment, because this place is very special. I think that there is something that has been called by others the ANU linguistic tradition and the Australian linguistic tradition, and I think it is a significant and special one. And I think it has three main ingredients. One is the tradition of sort of typology and of tackling languages on their own terms, which was brought in by Bob Dixon and Bill Foley and Tim Chopin and others. The second is the attention to and confidence in tackling semantics, which we owe to Anna Wierzbicka and others who've come in from that side. And the third is the grounding of the study of language in its cultural context. And there we are very lucky that during the late 70s, early 80s, we have this infusion of the American linguistic anthropological tradition, a whole bunch of people. Chicago voice has a bad ring to it, that was like some Chicago linguists. And this included Alan and Francesca, and also other, not all from Chicago, I think that other people trained in that tradition. So that was John Haberle and Bruce Rixby and Jeffrey Heath, who really brought an attention to culture that wasn't there before and has had a deep influence. I was trying to pick one quote to epitomise Alan's take on things. It was very hard because his interests range so incredibly widely. You'll get some idea of that from today's speakers, but that's just a fraction, all the same. But I think this statement about anthropology in the broader sense hits the spot. And it's in an article on collaborative anthropology, in particular collaboration between linguistics and anthropology, because Alan styles himself as a linguistic anthropologist if he has to choose some term, although it's a bit narrower than who he really is. So among all the human sciences, none is more interdisciplinary than anthropology. This is followed almost inevitably from the fact that anthropology has from the start always been concerned with the question of what it is to be human, and therefore with understanding the full range of dimensions along which human societies and cultures resemble or differ from one another. So in today's talks, I think we'll see a number of proofs of that position, and we will feel the palpable respect and affection in which Alan is held by so many people. And I'd personally just like to thank Alan for his friendship and collaboration over many years. I think I first met him in a dodgy underground bar in Canberra in 1981. I think dancing on the dance floor.
Dancing with Michael Silverstein.
Dancing with Michael. Was that you or me? We were obviously all drunk. Okay. So,
There were a few ladies present.
yeah. Not enough, obviously. Okay. Yeah. So, with that said, I would now like to pass over to our special invited speaker, Tony Woodbury, who's come from University of Texas at Austin. I'd maybe just like to say one further thing about the connection, which is that a couple of years after I got back to the ANU, Alan and myself organised a special course for which we invited Tony to come and teach on language and verbal art. It was a totally memorable course, funded it sort of on a shoestring, but that had an effect on a lot of people. And that was, I guess, that reflected this shared interest they both had. That was at a time where the Chandler Tales project was in full flight, and Tony has worked on many issues there, although that's not the primary focus of Tony's talk today, but it does reflect a number of other interests of Alan's. So thank you very much, Tony, for coming, and thanks to you all again for coming to celebrate this day.